Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, Friday night, and then you're listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch with myself, Cammy McDonald, and as always, co-host Dennis Newell. And tonight we're joined by, once again, podcast royalty in the shape of Andy Burrows, Tottenham fan, Washington Commanders fan, Boston Celtics. Andy, where do you stop? Good evening. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, Cammy. How are you, my friend? Thanks for having me again, boys. Always a pleasure.
No, thanks a lot for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. Doing good up here. As you say, work's kicking with arse, as Scott Hartley always says every Thursday night. But that's the joys of working in the industries that we do, mate.
That's it, mate. Yeah, work is absolutely kicking my arse right now. So I'm just good. I'm glad to sit down, to be honest.
Arse must be killing you, but never mind. Anyway, we're on to talk football. Obviously, it's Spurs fan. As I mentioned there in the intro, on to talk last night, Rangers and Spurs at Ibrox Park last night. Probably one of Rangers' best performances of the season. I don't think many Rangers fans would argue with that. Spurs, as you say, notoriously inconsistent, but a 1-1 draw you managed to scrape out last night, Andy.
I will take a 1-1 draw, mate. We should have been 3 or 4-0 down at half time. And that wouldn't have been an injustice to Rangers, to be honest. You know, you missed some chances. Rangers missed some chances. The keeper Forster made some good saves. It would not have surprised me, and it wouldn't have been an injustice to the game if we had been 4-0 down at half time. We were awful, absolutely. Or I think we just thought we were going to go up there. This isn't Rangers in the Scottish Premier. This is Rangers in Europe. And to be fair, Rangers have done okay in Europe. You know what I mean? The Scottish teams are giving a good go at themselves this season in Europe. So I don't even think it maybe was a case of us taking it lightly. It's just where we are as a football team right now. The most consistent thing about Tottenham is we're really inconsistent.
Yep.
You don't know what Tottenham's turning up right now. Everyone knows we went and beat Man City, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, everyone's beating Man City at the minute. Never thought I'd say that, but mate, Rangers. We were lucky last night to somehow get a point, but it's probably a better point than it is for Rangers. They're still above us in the little Europa in the league table. We weren't good, mate. We are so grateful to get out of Ibrox with a point.
Yeah, Dennis, you've been highly critical at times of Rangers, even when they're doing well and scoring goals in Europe. You know, you have mentioned in the past that they should be doing better. Last night, I don't think there's many would argue that Rangers should have come out of that game last night with a victory.
Yeah, I think so. I'll say now, that's Clement's best team performance since he got there. And I have been critical because they've been dire, to say the least, for a Rangers team. Maybe no if you're Ross County or St Johnstone, but for a Rangers team, they've been dreadful. They turned up last night, and what a difference when a team wants to work. And that was the difference I felt of the two teams. Plus, as well, you've not got to forget, Tottenham with a full squad, I think would have been a different kettle of fish. You know, you've lost central defenders, and to be honest, you were left wanting last night with an experience that was there. So, but from a Rangers point of view, the fans will be over the moon. They've not arrived yet by any manner of means. The big hurdle's coming on Sunday when they play Celtic in the League Cup final. But you can't take it away from them. Last night, every man worked his socks off. And they really did. And they had more desire and hunger to win that game than Tottenham did. And that was my thoughts last week when we discussed the game was, it's what team Tottenham actually turns up. Is it the team that goes to Ipswich and gets beat, or is it the team that plays Man City and wins? And that's what I think has been the problem. They appeared last night and it was like, it's only a warm-up game. We'll come away with 3 points. I've seen this many a games. I've seen it as well with teams I've had as well. They think you got a poor team. And I'll tell you what, you struggle big time against a poor team. But it brought the best out in Rangers last night, and they were never a poor team. And they could have easily won it if Dessers, my favourite player, had been somebody else. There's no point in getting into great positions, and you hit the goalkeeper when he's coming towards you, when you could have stuck it right or left after doing a nice bit of footwork. Hopeless. That takes you through, right? And then, what does he do with the next one? He's not looking along the line. You can actually see the forward. He's more than 4 feet offside. You don't get paid that kind of money to be acting like somebody that's just come out the pub. There's no point in scoring when you're 4 feet offside. So if you look at it in real terms, if you had a decent finisher, you could have won that. Rangers could have won that game quite handsomely, 3-4-1. But I mean, you might be able to say, Andy, what is the boy Werner doing playing Premier League football? Last night was absolutely embarrassing to be playing, and especially when you've got the big lad up front sitting on the bench. What did they pay for him? Was it £65 million or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's
sitting on the bench. I'm saying to myself, what's going on here? Put Song out wide and get Solanka through the middle. And because of his physical presence, he would have caused real upsets in that Rangers defence. No, what does he do? He plays a guy that looks as if, I don't want to be here. His body language is shocking. He came to Leipzig, I think, and he was scoring goals for fun. He's came to Britain and he couldn't kick his backside. His passing, his effort, his commitment is shocking. And I'll tell you what, that gets managers a sack, that kind of commitment. And why he persevered with him for 45 minutes, I will never know. I will never know. And he still never made the change that was meant to be right with the big fella through the middle, especially when John Souttar went off injured. Rangers' best player by a mile through the last, 2 months since he's come back from injury. So there's a lot of pluses on the Rangers front, but there's also minuses if you look ahead and you think going into the Celtic game, John Souttar, I think, will struggle. And you've also got Egerman, who took his goal very well. I think he's a better player than Dessers, but he will still miss chances. Now, I think he went off injured as well. So if you look at it, you've Souttar missing and you've got Egerman missing, and you're looking then at Dessers going up front. So for Celtic, I know I've jumped ahead to Sunday's game, there's a different approach that Rangers will need to take. But going back to playing against Andy's team, they were miles better than Tottenham. Miles better. And they've got to be applauded for that. Their work rate, Cammy, was brilliant. It really was. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I've said to you all season, they're a hard watch. They weren't a hard watch last night. They were entertainment through and through, and really excellent.
Yeah. And I remember when you were on the last time, you were saying that Postecoglou's tactics was he defended quite far up the park, left a lot of space in behind, and Rangers exploited that last night. They definitely did. They got in behind, and for what I saw in the highlights, etc. Obviously, I'm quite upfront. I haven't seen the full game. I've seen a lot of the highlights, but Rangers definitely exploited that space last night.
Oh, mate, you don't. The thing is, now you don't have to be a rocket scientist to play against Tottenham. He got away with it in the first when he first come to Tottenham. It was like we were playing a really good, attractive football, but you get found out playing that at any level of football. And people said, "Oh, you'll get away with it playing against Glasgow Rangers." Well, you won't get away with it playing against Glasgow Rangers because, as compared the SPL compared to the Premier League, it's night and day. But an average-ish football team will figure out how to play against a high line. I go and watch Dunstable Town on a Saturday, and if a team's playing a high line against us, we know that we can put the ball in behind them, we'll get them, and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And Postecoglou's problem is he's very stubborn. He won't change the way he plays. Yep. And I think I said to you last time when I was on with you guys a few months back, I said if he sticks to that stubbornness, it'll be that stubbornness that gets him the sack. And I still stand by that. I think it will be that stubbornness that gets him the sack because I think he's a good coach, and I think he, when you got to look how the players have backed him in the last week and how they've come out and spoke highly of him. I don't want another Tottenham manager to change. It's just another merry-go-round because you can talk about Daniel Levy and Enoch until the cows come home. Yeah, we want them gone. They're going absolutely nowhere. There's absolutely no chance of that. So he either has to adapt to the way he plays. You don't go 2-0 up against Chelsea in 20 minutes and still attack. You see it out till half time. You be sensible. Even with Romero and Van der Ven, you be sensible. You shut the back door till half time. You go in 2-0, and you try and sit on what you've got, kind of thing. You're a bit like Mourinho used to do when he was in charge. He would have been closing that back door. You wouldn't be getting past us. So it's going to be his downfall. I'm telling you now, and last night was a proven point that Rangers tore us apart. Can you imagine what Liverpool are going to do to us in 2 weeks if we play? Well, I say if we play like that, we're gonna play like that. We're not.
Yeah.
It doesn't know how to play any other way. It's all this. Oh, we could adapt for Liverpool. We're not going to change for Southampton on Sunday. Southampton will be looking at going, just get balls in behind Tottenham. They're missing their 2 centre backs. Just get balls in. I'm telling you now, if we lose to if we've got Southampton, Man United, and Liverpool, if we lose all 3 of them, he's gone. He's dead man. He's dead man walking already, in my opinion. But
the thing is, Andy, I actually thought that Tottenham coming up to play Rangers would have won that game comfortably. And I mean 3 or 4-0, maybe 3-4-1, whatever. I did. And that was actually after the first half against Chelsea, because the first half they were slick, the work rate was brilliant, and they were actually looking like a really good team. And then they just seemed to fall apart. There was no structure. And again, I go back to it, you've got injuries, and I worry about the strength and depth that you have in the squad. And I think that's a major problem. But he's also got to identify players that are not doing a gig for him, as I mentioned Werner earlier on. You can't even stand that guy. You know what I mean? You've got to
he shouldn't be, and everyone's saying today I had Talk Sport on most. I was in the L'Oreal most of today, traveling around, delivering, doing my day job, and everyone on Talk Sport was saying, "Oh, it's a bit harsh for him coming out and having a go at Werner." Werner's never been any good. He was all right at Chelsea because he was in a very good team. In the English Premier League, he's not cut out to play in the English Premier League. Everyone who knows anything about football knows that man is not good enough. But that's where we are as a football club, unfortunately, Tottenham. If you don't want to go out and spend the big bucks, and you don't want to, Levy, he spent money without actually spending real money, if that makes sense. He's gone and got, we've got Archie Gray, we've got all these young lads coming through that are for the future. Yeah, and hopefully they are going to be great. But Tottenham fans are sick and tired of waiting. The here and now is the here and now. Tottenham fans want to win. We deserve to win. We haven't got this forgiven right, but where we are as a football club is probably us three could have sat down and had this conversation 10, 15 years ago, and it would be the exact same conversation. Because Tottenham have not, we flitted with it. We got to the Champions League final. We finished third in a 2-horse race somehow when we screwed up the league and Leicester won it. We didn't back Pochettino after the Champions. These are things that every single Tottenham fan up and down the land has been saying, but Levy and Enoch won't care because Coldplay are packing out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 5 nights. The NFL is coming to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. U2, Guns N' Roses, they don't care because they're making an absolute. We've got the best training ground, and the best stadium in the world. Well, they don't win you trophies. They look good, and it's lovely to go to. And I've been to Tottenham many times this season, but that will not win you trophies. Yes, the Postecoglou's got to take a huge amount of responsibility for what's gone on, especially in the last month. Levy and Enoch have to as well, but they're not going anywhere. And Tottenham fans, and fair play to them, they're protesting against Liverpool, etc., etc. But just proved last night, and everyone disses Scottish football, and it's terrible. It's a farmers' league. Yeah. Well, we just went up there last night. We're all right, not our first choice centre backs and not our first choice team, but with a team that, like Dennis said, potentially everyone was saying, well, we'll win 3-1, we'll win 4-1. Yeah, I never thought that for a start because I've been watching Tottenham the last month, and I think we showed Rangers a complete lack of respect last night, and we should have got absolutely smashed. Rangers should have been out of sight at half time.
Yeah. I think though, if you look back at Tottenham, Pochettino, there was a season where he didn't buy any players in the close season, and that's not that long ago. Now that's where the stutter was, because she had done well at that season, and it was felt, I think, that there wasn't really any need to.
It was the season after the Champions League, wasn't it? Yeah, we lost to Newcastle at home. I was at that game, and I think he got sacked by the time I got home. But again, that's the club. They should have backed him. Apparently, he gave them a list of players that we wanted, and just Enoch and Levy were like, it's typical Tottenham. A player will be worth 70 million. Tottenham will come in with at 5 to midnight and transfer deadline day and go, we'll give you 12. Yeah. Daniel Levy could be Scottish. He's that tight. He could be one of your mob.
That's the decline. That was the start of the decline for Tottenham in relation to a good season. Did not buy, and I spoke to one of my colleagues who's a keen Tottenham fan, at the time that happened. And I said, I don't care what team you are, you need to freshen things up, because if your players have a good season, you still have to have that bit extra edge in the competition by bringing people in. And you need at least 2 or 3, at least, when you're at that top flight, to freshen it up with experience that makes the ones that, oh, well, okay, I'll just turn up. That's me. I've got another season. I don't need to do much more than I've done last year. You've always got to do more than you've done the year before. And that's the problem I felt Tottenham. It wasn't so much even them looking at it and saying, well, we're not spending money. It's the philosophy and the way you must go forward in football. And that's where you're shortchanging the manager and the supporters by not freshening that team up, whether you have a good season or not. Liverpool does it. Man
United used to do it season after
they all
season.
Do it.
It's the most Tottenham thing
we
ever.
like Tottenham, I don't know.
It's the most Tottenham thing ever, really. You look at it. We got 100 million for Bell all them years ago. Do you know who we eventually replaced Gareth Bell with? Gareth Bell.
Yeah. Yeah.
It says it all about Tottenham. You know what I mean? This isn't nothing new, guys. This has been going on for season after season. I dread logging onto social media or my Facebook or my WhatsApp, because my mates absolutely destroy me being a Tottenham fan. And, you know, nothing will change. This conversation, again, like I said, this conversation could have happened 10 years ago. And it could happen in 5 years' time. Nothing will change at Tottenham until they would rather be business first, football club second. And I get that's where a lot of modern football is. And unfortunately, that's gone are the days of wanting to win football games first and be a business second. Now, like I said, Daniel Levy would rather Coldplay there Monday to Friday, or he'd rather the NFL, or he'd rather have a Formula One track underneath White Hart Lane Stadium. As long as that is running as a business, he doesn't care about us as fans. You know, you've only got to look at the season ticket price. You know, pensioners are, you know, their prices now are ridiculous. What you've got to the cost of going to games now. Daniel Levy does not care about the football side of Tottenham Hotspur. You know, he might say he do on the front of things, but he is a businessman. He is running that like it's, you know, it's a major building firm, or it's or something like that. He doesn't care that we haven't won a trophy. He genuinely doesn't care. He's shopping at Aldi when, you know, Tottenham fans want to be in Waitrose. It's one of them kind of things, and he will not care. I promise you that now.
Yeah,
but the one thing
going back to your manager.
Sorry, on you go, Dennis.
Going back to your manager, if he plays kind of players we've talked about last night, and goes about the game the same way he's been doing. See, when he was at Celtic, Andy, it was a breeze for him, because he could play that way week in and week out. Nobody touched him. You know, you
only had to adapt your tactics maybe when you played Rangers, but you can get away. No, and I've said this to you guys last time. I mean this with like no disrespect. You could get away with it against St Mirren.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that when you're going to Liverpool and well, maybe not Man United, they're terrible. But Brighton, look at Brighton, we were 2-0 up. Chelsea, we were 2-0 up. You know, last night we should have got absolutely hammered. It's Tottenham, mate. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you've still got games to look forward to. You're still not out of the Europa League scenario. So you can turn the corner. You just need to look at the league. You'll not win the league now. That's certainly well gone. But the bottom line is, he's got to get his act together about how he's got to adapt to the English game and make sure that his starting lineup is there to win matches. That wasn't the case last night.
No, he'll have to sign some players in January as well.
Yeah.
And we need a keeper. Oh, this Foster, he's not the answer. We need a keeper. We need we need a left back. We can't put our poor old Archie Gray in at centre back. You know, he took a risk with Romero and Van der Ven against Chelsea, and it backfired.
Yeah.
So we need to recruit them.
Yeah.
But the one thing we're looking at, Dennis, and obviously this is more up to us, is it's looking like another guy who was a success in Scotland has gone down south and failed, you know, and on the back of Steven Gerrard, on the back of Brendan Rodgers, the amount of managers who have been a success up here, won the SPL, they've gone down to England, and it looks again like Postecoglou is going to be the next one in that line who are failing down south.
It's not an easy task to get down there, Cam. It's a different environment. I mean,
if
you look at Postecoglou, he really cut his teeth here with a team that didn't know what defeat was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could understand if he's maybe came from, you could even say Motherwell, where he knows the highs, the lows, and everything else. A team probably that's been in Europe, or a manager that's been in Europe. We don't really have them in abundance. But the bottom line is, when you're at Celtic, or the way Celtic have been recently, and the role he had, it's not a stroll in the park, but it's a 3 points you can almost be guaranteed every week, unless you take your eye off the ball up in Scotland. Go and take that down to England, as we've discussed there at length. These are big hitters. They're the best teams you're up against in the world. And when you look at Scotland, and it looks as if I'm decrying it, but there's a financial element there that we can't even dip our toe in the water with. I mean, if you look probably at Tottenham team, one player is more than Rangers altogether with a cost. So you say to yourself, well, don't make the comparison. Well, I'm not really. What I'm saying is if a manager goes to England, he's been used to an easy run. And that easy run, when you're coming against the big hitters like Liverpool, Man City, Man United, all these big boys, and Tottenham, then you've got to be able to produce something a little bit extra. And what it's shown with the managers you've mentioned there, they don't have that extra.
No, that's what I mean. You know, so as Andy's saying, he's not been disrespectful to Scottish football, but Scottish champions, managers who have been there, cannot survive or cannot be a success in the English game. It would certainly appear, Andy.
Yeah, mate, you're right. I mean, I probably feel sorry. That's probably the wrong word, but yeah, it is hard for anyone coming down from Scotland because, you know, we all say down here, you could put any three of us in charge of Rangers and Celtic, and you'd like to think we'd have a chance of competing for the league. And I think that's a bigger indictment on Scottish football. What you have to look at is, where do Scottish football want to go? Do they want to? And that comes down from everywhere. That's from TV revenue down to everything, from grassroots. You know, Scottish football, why it's only a two-team league. It's a little. Aberdeen have been up there a little bit this season, and you know they're making a fist of it because Rangers have, like Dennis said, took their eye off the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
But until you get that TV investment, until you get that big sponsorship deal, because the Premier League is watched all over the world. I apart from Rangers and Celtic, Cammy, you know this, I spend a lot of time in the States. Apart from Rangers and Celtic, if Kilmarnock are playing Hearts, no one in downtown New York is watching it. If Rangers are playing Celtic, a bar is packed full of jocks. Absolutely rammed to the back door full of Scottish fans watching their team. Whereas Man United could play Liverpool, or Arsenal could play Chelsea, or Tottenham could. A bar in South Africa, in New York, in anywhere, in Canada, is going to be packed because of the pull that the Premier League has. Unfortunately, I don't see anywhere in the next 10 years that Scottish football is going to get anywhere near that.
Nope.
It's not like you remember, I could go back 20 odd years ago, Rangers Celtic. Didn't have a clue who was going to win. It was the one time that it was on Sky Sports. Everyone down there used to think, I'm watching this. It's going to be blood and thunder. It's either going to be 4-4. There's going to be a couple of red cards. Now you look at Rangers Celtic. Maybe this Sunday might be different because of the performance Rangers put on against Tottenham. But 9 times out of 10, most people look at it and go, well, Celtic are going to win. You know, there's nothing. There's not that excitement's gone from Scottish football and I've only ever known 2 teams in Scotland ever. I'm 44 years old. I've never known anyone else apart from Rangers and Celtic to compete in the Scottish League. So till investment is put into Scottish football, but everything will come back to TV money. You look at the money that's put into TV, into the Premier League. Unfortunately, I don't see a path where companies are going to go, right, we'll pump 100 million into Scottish football, Sky Sports, DAZN, you know, Netflix now getting involved in sport. There's no one that, because you've only got Rangers and Celtic. And again, I never mean this disrespectfully, because I've been up to Scotland. I've met some of them. I went and seen, I spent a night like with Glasgow Rangers fans, and it's like a religion. It is literally like a religion. And I was like, wow, I've done the tour of Ibrox. It's incredible. But until that investment is done in Scottish football, it won't ever get any better. And that's to the downfall of Steven Gerrard. Brendan Rodgers, I still think I like him. There's something about him that I think he might be one. He's come away from the Premier League and he's gone back up there. And I think if he come back down, he might do okay. I think he's adaptable. But it's always the names that you look at that have come out of Scottish football. You look round, Alex Ferguson's probably the only real one that we all look at and go, wow. But it was a different era back then. It was, you know, we were going back to the 70s and early 80s when it wasn't just Rangers and Celtic. He took an Aberdeen team from absolutely nothing I won everything with them. Will that ever happen again? No. So, the future of Scottish football is, God, it's money.
Andy, what you've got to do is to get money, you must have a product, right?
Yeah.
You must have a product. Doesn't matter what it is in every walk of life, right? Whether it's that paper, whether it's that pen, it must be worth selling, right? If that paper, you got to put a pen that falls apart, or the pen has no ink, then it's not worth it. And the way I look at it is, our product has not been sold well enough by the Scottish governing body. If you look at it, our games in Scotland take a second prize every single week or month to English games. English games. We're then put to the side in these channels that they've got to pay a subscription for. We've seen it with the Scotland team. We've seen it in Europe. And it's absolutely shocking that nobody has got the skills and the ability to promote the product. But to do that, you can't go in and sell them something that's dud, using the tone lightly. You can't go in there and sell them and say, well, give us £100 million and this will improve. It won't improve. It will not improve until we find that we don't get stitched up by agents bringing in players that are no fit for purpose from all parts of the world. Scottish football's riddled with it. I would rather that youth development was thrown in the deep end and seen what they can do on a Saturday afternoon as a guy like, I'll use the word, Desser. Desser's not any better than I've seen guys in the lower divisions with the chances he misses. Now, that's an extreme, right? That is a real extreme. But there must be somebody in the academy at Rangers or in Celtic that can go into the first team and produce goals. If they've not, why have we got the academies? And there's where you've got to produce. And also, on the back of that, while you're playing them, and here's the big thing, selling clubs will never win you anything in relation to getting television rights or being in a level playing field with anything in England. Because as soon as a player becomes good, he's off. Celtic can't get them out the door quick enough to make a quick buck, which means then the quality with what you're bringing in next is got to be taught, like the boy Ingles. Oh, he'll be good for the future. I'm sorry, but I'm paying my money every week. I want to see the finished product so that when he's good, you'll bump him. And that's the cycle that Celtic and Rangers are on. Rangers have a big problem because they have nobody that would make any money. They sold 2 players there that were in the first team last year and they only get 800,000 from them. 800,000 in this day's market is just embarrassing. So we have a major issue with the whole infrastructure, Andy. And you're right, I can't see it coming back very soon.
You need to be able to attract players, though. If you look at back in, like I have to hark back because it was the only time that really Scottish football appealed to me. And again, I don't mean that disrespectfully. You need to attract players like Paul Gascoigne, and you need to get Henrik Larsson. Now, name me the last real big name where you've gone, wow, how the hell is he in Scottish football? That doesn't happen anymore, and that's more an indictment on the league. You don't get any real big players. You don't get a Roy Keane coming up to Celtic. You don't get a Paul Gascoigne. Paul Gascoigne was still relatively in his prime when he comes to Glasgow.
Yeah, but the beer was cheaper up here, Andy.
Yeah, it is very. I love it.
Fishing's much better.
I know, right? But when was the last time when you actually got a player at a Rangers or a Celtic and you went, how on earth has he ended up in Scottish football? He's an actual name.
Yeah.
Well, the one I can think back and probably that stands out was Henrik Larsson. I think he only cost about £500,000 or something.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, I know. It's a while ago, right? It's maybe 20 years. But the thing about it is there's nothing comes through. I mean, they're getting £25 million for players that are going down south and they don't really hold on to a regular place. There's nobody sets the hair on the fire that I can think of that's gone down there. Robertson, but he wasn't at the old firm. He's an exception maybe to the rule. You've got Kieran Tierney, really good player, injured more than he's fit. So you could go on. There's other players, but I'm just pulling a few out there that are decent and can play in the Premiership. But what you've got
John McGinn's a big one.
That's right, John McGinn.
Yeah, he's probably the biggest. Yeah, he's probably the biggest one that's come
Excellent.
down. They just get cherry picked. That's the problem.
There's a scattering there, though. It's a scattering. But we don't have anybody to fill their boots whenever they leave. And that's the problem. That's why I think the product's no great. But we must introduce youngsters through the system rather than bringing them in from abroad on the back of a whim that some agent decides, I'll put something together here that makes him look really great, and you get sell a pig in a poke, so to speak. And that's what we've been getting. And that's right throughout the Premier League. I see it at St Mirren, I see it at Hibs, I see it everywhere. And these guys are just hopefully getting it as a platform. You know, you look at what
you've got now, Dennis. I think you back in the day. I mean, obviously, you guys are going to know way better than me. And obviously, a lot of my family was Scottish. So I kind of know what goes on up there. But back in the day, it was like you wanted to grow up to play for Rangers and Celtic. Yeah. Now you just want to grow up and use them as a stepping stone.
Yeah,
that's not how Rangers and Celtic got. And that's me being disrespectful. Actually, any team in Scotland, if you're Scottish and you were born and bred in Scotland, should not be a stepping stone. Now, unfortunately, all they see it is, well, if I can make 10 first-team appearances for Glasgow Rangers, say, I might get picked up by a Tottenham. I might get picked up by someone, someone in. And what's even worse is, I would even go as far as saying your players would get cherry-picked by the Championship. That's how I reckon you could get a Sheffield United, a Leeds United, someone like that come in for you. And I would say not on a fan base. I'm not purely on football. I reckon players would rather go, do you know what? I'll go and play in the Championship instead of the SPL. That's a bigger indictment on where Scottish football is, in my opinion. Because if you look at my second team, Leeds United, they've had many Scottish players over the years. But now, if you look at Leeds sitting second in the Championship, if in January they go to Glasgow Rangers, the guy that scored the goal in the second half we'll use him as an example, that scored the opener for Rangers. If Leeds come in January, bear in mind they would know it's Scottish football. They would know that any money is good money. They would say, right, we'll give Rangers 10 million. They'll bite their hand off.
Snap the hand off, yeah.
They'll snap the hand off, but that's going to be detrimental to Rangers because, like Dennis said, they'll get that 10 million. That is getting you absolutely no one when you have to try and spend that money. And who are you going to get that's going to want to come? It's going to be what Tottenham do. It's going to be someone for the future. It's going to be someone that you can develop. So again, that's a bigger indictment on Scottish football and the SPL, that your better players or even your fringe players, your future youth players, could get cherry-picked by our Championship. So that speaks volumes for the SPL as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes you're being kind there saying the Championship. We've had players have left clubs up here, Aberdeen, St Mirren, whatever, have almost gone non-league. I think Adam Rooney did that.
Wrexham have got a couple of guys in there. I think Wrexham picked a couple of guys up from Scottish football. So, you're talking League One, League Two, and you're like, again, that's where someone at the head of Scottish football must go, hang on a minute. Something's got to be done here. And no one's going to wave a magic wand. But again, like Dennis said earlier, and Camille, like you've mentioned in the past, it's who's going to want to invest enough money to make Scottish football viable. All we ever talk about down here is Rangers and Celtic. That is it. I never sit here on a Saturday night or talk sport talk and maybe Hearts could be one that you might throw in the mix. But every single person down here, if it isn't Rangers and Celtic, people are like, oh, well, Aberdeen are having an okay season. Hearts pipe up every now and again. They might have a little bit of a Europa Conference League run. But everyone down here and probably across the world, I've been to the States loads. I can probably tell you, if I said to you, do you know who Glasgow Rangers are? Someone in Washington, D.C. will be like, yep. Ever heard of Kilmarnock and St Mirren? They'll be like, no idea what you're on about.
No.
Yeah. Andy, I don't know how we will ever change that. You're always going to have a die-hard supporters. Like Cammy supports Clyde. And the bottom line is the clubs will survive because they're almost self-sufficient.
But the
bottom line is you will never get to the level of 30 years ago when there was very little difference between the English Premiership and the Scottish Premier League, simply because there wasn't that financial investment by either foreign owners or Sky Television when it came along. We get left. We just get shoved. And therefore, the input to go and buy players, when you look at it, Celtic, the most expensive player they've ever spent money on is £11 million. In this day and age, you get Championship players transferring for an awful lot more than that in England. So you say to yourself, how do you play catch up? You won't, because these clubs are so busy trying to get money in the door to survive. You look at it, what was it? Was it £17 million Rangers lost last year?
Mm-hmm.
I might be wrong with that. I'm just trying to pull something out the air there. But a club as big as that, when they've maybe brought in 80 million or something like that, how do you progress? And you can be the best MDs of these clubs in the world. You're up against it every day when you're trying to bring a player in and he doesn't do the job for you because, as I say and I repeat, he's not the product that you were expecting to buy, then what do?
Yeah, it's kind of always been a feeder though. To like, if you look at all the good players that you can go back as far as Pierre Van Hooijdonk, who ended up at Nottingham Forest, was an amazing player in Scotland. But again, as soon as he does anything, the English Premier League are like, right, we'll have him cheap. You know, any single player that does well, Robinson done well in Scotland. Okay, we'll have him cheap at Liverpool. You know that
Van Dijk,
you know, done well at Celtic.
Yeah.
Got him on an absolute steal down here. He went to Southampton. He goes to Liverpool, and the rest is history. So, you know, and unfortunately, like you said, Dennis, I can't see that ever changing in the next, we'll say at least 10 years. You know, I'm 44 now. By the time I'm 54, will Scottish football be realistically any different? Will the national team have improved? You know, it says me, the England fan, who's never won fuck all. But, you know, it's an indictment of what Scottish football is. Last night gave you a glimpse of what could be, because if you can turn them European performances in on a consistent basis, albeit you're playing an average-ish Tottenham team, but Rangers thoroughly deserved to win that game last night. If you can do that on a consistent level, and what Rangers need to do, I know they got to Europa League final a few seasons ago. What they need to do is compete on a European level consistently. But you need other Scottish teams to somehow do that. If, you know, you look at an Aberdeen who always get knocked out in like the first qualifying round of whatever tournament they're in, you need somehow to get through the youth development and get these young lads in that are good enough to compete on a European level. And England are the same. We haven't got a great talent because we go abroad and we get all our players. We're very lucky. You might get a Jack Grealish, but even England do the same. We'll go and get someone from Spain or Germany or et cetera. You know, instead of, I'd make it a rule in the Premier League that you have to have 4 homegrown players.
Yes.
In your starting 11 every single week. That's the only way your national
I would go
team
back to that. And I go back to that in a second, especially in Scotland, because I think we're getting starved. A young talent is getting starved and forced out of the game by, as I keep rattling my gums tonight, about agents bringing in inferior quality. Because they've been brought in and they've been signed up in the contract, the young guys are not going to get a chance. But the bottom line is, we need to be looking at something like that, going back to the old days where you used to have them in the squad and make sure that we're getting. I would actually also, and this is something for another day, look at points deduction if you didn't have so many hours of youngsters playing throughout the season that had either been developed through your youth development. And that could be a way of saying, right, here's a way of maybe getting some money back. In other words, if St Mirren were actually playing maybe 2 or 3, 4 youngsters and at least committing themselves because they don't have the financial clout, then if Celtic don't do the same and play youngsters, then their points deducted or the league gives them out extra money. But I think we've got to try something. There is no way are we going to ever catch up with England. Never.
Dennis, you only need to look and see what little Lennoxtown or what little Mulgai has produced in terms of the first team players, you know, and these are players who aren't even plying their trade in the lower clubs or in the lower divisions here. You know, these are guys who are going to Rangers youth, going to Celtic youth, and they're doing absolutely sod all else, you know, for the clubs. Or, as I say, in terms of getting transferred to Kilmarnock, to St Mirren, because we're far too interested in farming in cheap foreign overseas duds, you know, but we just want to bring in, as I say, guys from Africa, guys from lesser European countries and things like that, you know, to try and stock out our clubs, and it just isn't working. It's not working for the national team. It's certainly not working for the clubs. It's at the detriment of likes of Rangers, the only one who's been a success at it. And in terms of define success, do you want to bring players in and then punt them for inflated transfer fees, or do you want to bring in players who are going to be a success at your club? And the only club who's getting close to that is Celtic just now.
Yeah, they've been fortunate because what they've done is they've got a better scouting system than anyone else in Scotland, and on the back of that, they've been fortunate to bring in players that are sell on. Now, I think you've got a big problem at Rangers with that, because at this moment in time, I don't think there's anyone that would catch my eye if I was looking at investing money in a player to do better for any team that I was maybe a bit better than Rangers. I I don't think there's anybody there that could go to another club and improve it. I just don't think there is. And, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it'll never be seen anyway. But it's only my opinion. But whereas in Celtic, you've got a few that actually could go and do better things. You've got John Souttar, I think, has been exceptional. But John Souttar has lots of injuries. He's not got a sell-on price. He's not capable of going to, say, Ajax or something like that. He's a bit older, but I don't see anybody that's young in that Rangers team having been able or capable to make a move either to the English Premiership or Championship and be able to get some, what would you say, really good cash into Ibrox. And that's a problem that the manager's going to have if he's there any great length of time. And I'll tell you what, if they do get beat on Sunday with Celtic, they've got a major problem, because it's no point in, this league finishes after the 23rd of January, where you're finding that you're into playoffs and God knows what else. I just think that the season shouldn't be looked upon as the success you had in Europe, because it didn't do Steven Gerrard much good.
Yeah. But again, even the players you mentioned, Andy, the Andy Robertsons, the Van Dijks, etc., they've been a success now at the clubs, but that's again via other clubs in England. You didn't get Andy Robertson didn't go direct from Dundee United straight down to Liverpool. He went via Hull. Obviously Van Dijk went via Southampton. So these are players who aren't making the transition immediately. They're doing it via another club. So they're using that Celtic, Rangers as a stepping stone to make the stepping stone to get to the big time. So something needs to change.
Managers as well. Managers should have this progression. We start at the bottom and work your way up. And players should do the same. I don't think there's very few people really have started and went straight in, other than a way back to the 70s or something like that, where players would come off a junior football park and go straight into the first team. Somebody like Bobby Russell, just mentioning a name for a way back. That kind of talent doesn't exist anymore.
No.
You need that progression of going to Hull and then moving on to Liverpool. But he was at Queen's Park first, then it was Dundee United.
Dundee United, yeah.
So, you look at the progression, it's been good, and he's a better player for it. And I think a lot of players could do with that. I don't know what happens to the boy Werner. Was he just born as a German international and decided he wanted to play with Chelsea and then Tottenham?
I don't know. He shouldn't even play. I don't know. Honestly, he makes me want to put my boots back on. He's that bad.
When you think about what he was, but at 17-year-old, he broke into the Stuttgart team, got a big money move to Leipzig, moved for Leipzig for 50 mil to Chelsea, goes back to Leipzig for 25, and then gets a loan out to your club, Andy. And there's a guy 85 to 100 million pounds worth of transfer fees, and as you say, he's absolute garbage.
It tells you the ambition of Tottenham when you're getting players like him. We've got we flip with it. Tottenham always give you that false hope. Like I said earlier, we come third in the 2-horse race. We got to the Champions League final. We should have backed Pochettino. We give our fans a little sprinkling of hope.
Yeah.
And then it's just dashed. And then we have this, what we're doing now. We'll have this for another 2 or 3 seasons, and someone could come in and we'll be up there again, and we'll be there or thereabouts. And then Daniel Levy will be like, well, I'm not giving you 70, 80 million for a striker, or I'm not investing in this player. We'll go and get a Werner. We'll go and get, Solanke could, hopefully he comes good. I really hope he does. I like Solanke, but we'll always be that club. We'll always be that, Tottenham. All I hear is, you're great to watch. Brilliant. What has great to watch ever won us? We haven't won a trophy since 2008. We haven't won an FA Cup since 1991. We haven't won the league since 1961. But then you look at it and everyone goes, well, we play entertaining football. Well, we tried to not play entertaining football when we had Mourinho and Conte, and again that failed. So where you've gone from one extreme, you've got Postecoglou now who's playing attractive football, and you get Man City games, or do you want a Mourinho and Conte where you park the bus? But the most Tottenham thing ever was you get to a cup final and you sack Mourinho the day before. Because Daniel apparently, and this is a lot of Tottenham fans I spoke to, because if he had won a trophy, it would have cost Daniel Levy 30 million, because that was part of his contract. He would have had to pay up 20, 25, 30 million, because in his contract, if he had won a trophy, Daniel Levy and Edith could have had to pay him X amount of money. So the day before, it wasn't even like a few weeks before, the day before, sacked him, and Ryan Mason's thinking, what the, would we have won the cup final? Who knows? But we'd have had a much better chance with Jose Mourinho in charge.
Oh,
but
100%.
the most
100%.
Tottenham thing ever. That.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on, we'll look at, obviously, Andy, your fixtures over the next couple of games. You've got, as you say, you've got Southampton at the weekend, then you get Manchester United in the League Cup quarterfinals. You guys are at the quarterfinals, we've got the final stages, but a couple of big games. Southampton, they're almost as inconsistent as you. A couple of times it can look as if they're going to get a result but don't quite, or other times they're just getting hammered 4-5-0. So it should be a game you would expect to win, but I guess you're not overly confident.
If we got a saying down here, I don't know, you guys might have it up there, but if you ever want to win, play Tottenham. If you haven't won for ages, play Tottenham. I tell you what, I wouldn't. If you want to have a cheeky £1 bet somewhere, put a bet on us losing to Tamworth. Clip this, because when we do lose to Tamworth, remember I told you that we probably could go there and lose to Tamworth. It would be the most Tottenham Hotspur thing ever. Probably beat Liverpool 2-0 at home, and then 3 weeks later go and get knocked out of the FA Cup by Tamworth. It would be the most Spurs thing ever. I personally think that, I don't know what's going to happen Sunday. We could win 6-0. We could lose 3-0. I honestly don't know.
Without being too harsh on your team, I think you've got injuries, and I just think he needs to smarten his look up. But my concern is that I've listened to media nearly every week about him not changing his tactics, not going about it in a different way. Now, you don't need to listen to the media, but sometimes there's an element where they're correct, and you could maybe get a few snippets and a bit of advice of some of these pros that are sitting on the what would you say, on the tables that are talking about the tactics. He could maybe learn a little bit from that and keep his job. But if he's going to be stubborn, then you look at the Southampton game and you say to yourself, that could be a banana skin. But to be honest, Andy, I think it's maybe too harsh in Tottenham. Southampton are doomed. I've watched them a few times now, and they're just they just don't.
I said that I was at the Ipswich game. I went to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, White Hart Lane, I call it. I went to the Ipswich game and I took my daughter. She's a massive Spurs fan. I was like, hopefully we'll see some goals. And it was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen in my life. Ipswich Spurs. So on our day, we could. Southampton are bad, really bad, and I think they'll go down. Yeah, but they're playing Tottenham.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll need to move on and get through some of the Premier League where we've got fixtures. We touched on some of the games there. Arsenal have got Everton, Liverpool, Fulham, Newcastle, Leicester, Wolves have got Ipswich, and Notts Forest have got Aston Villa. And then on Sunday, Brighton have got Crystal Palace, Man City, Man United. That'll be interesting. Chelsea, Brentford, and Southampton have Tottenham. And then the Monday night game is Bournemouth against West Ham United. Now, there's something when you're talking about games, Andy, that you don't watch, like St Mirren plays Motherwell. I think we've got so much saturation point. You couldn't pay me to watch Bournemouth against West Ham.
Well, because you get so much of the Premier League up there.
Well, we get everything. The thing is, I really had a problem trying to fit in MasterChef final last night. It was about 1 o'clock time I got in my bed. It really was. So you're getting too much football, Andy. Too much football.
Well, yeah. I mean, Cammy will tell you I'm probably one of the world's busiest men with God knows what I'm doing. But yeah, it is hard to watch all the football that's on. I mean, I think I don't know if you guys listen to Talk Sport. Simon Jordan was talking the other day. I think it will go down the subscription route soon. That might be beneficial to all kinds of football, SPL, Premier League, But yeah, there is a lot of football, especially this time of year. We're coming into the Premier League. I won't lie, I'm going to be watching the darts for the next 2 weeks. So I'm not going to be watching loads of football. Yeah. And Washington are going to make the playoffs.
We've got a lot to watch, mate.
Washington are going to be in the playoffs, hopefully.
A trip to Minnesota, Green Bay. Jesus.
Yeah.
let me move into the Premiership results last week, because obviously it was relevant. Ross County going down 3-0 to Rangers. That was a good result for them. Aberdeen and St Johnstone drawn 1 each with St Johnstone. Aberdeen 1 each with St Johnstone. No, the best game I watched with Aberdeen. I thought they were pretty poor.
They fell away.
I don't know if they're just losing a lot of steam here.
Yeah.
Celtic beating Hibs 3-0. I thought Hibs were a little bit better, but they're still no, they just can't score goals. And it was good to see that they had a clean sheet at the back, because that's historically been horrendous for the last year and a half. Dundee United and Kilmarnock won each. Hearts 2-0 against Dundee, with Shankland scoring 2 goals, first for a long while. And St Mirren going down 1-0 to Motherwell. If I look just briefly at the Hearts game, I think, and you just take in their European game last night, I think against Copenhagen, it was just too much for them. Copenhagen's a decent enough team, right? And I just felt it was far too much for Hearts to go out there and get a result.
Hearts are getting found wanting.
Yeah, but I think also Vargas, get rid of him. I look at that and I go, he doesn't help the cause. He's a guy that thinks he should be playing at a better level, and I mentioned that last week. Shankland, take the armband off him, let the boy run free, and give the armband to somebody that's going to be a leader in the park. And that's where I think they struggle. They don't have that leadership on the park, and you've got a guy, because he scored goals and was the best player last year, has got the armband. It's a bit like you turn up at the football pitch and it's your ball, so somebody says, "Oh, you can be captain then if we can use your ball." It's a bit like that, really.
Yeah.
Because he's done virtually nothing. He scored 2 goals, but I watched him last night. Even the commentary was sort of going, why did he no move in there? Why did he no go here? It was like he was lost.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you either need a fresh break away from it, which you did in the summer, but you've not really charged the batteries up. So Hearts are really needing to get into a transfer window and get forwards in there. Otherwise, the same effect is going to happen to this manager as the last one. So, but we shall see. The fixtures for the weekend are: Hibs have Ross County, Motherwell, Dundee United, and St Johnstone have St Mirren. Sunday, you've got Kilmarnock against Hearts. I find it very strange that on the same day, you have our League Cup final, with Celtic playing Rangers at 3:30. I've never known that before, Cammy. Have you?
Yeah, I think it's happening quite regularly. You're getting a league game, then you're getting a League Cup. And I know it happens obviously down south with you guys as well, Andy. On your League Cup final day.
Yeah, we have a full programme, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I think it has happened before, and let's be fair, if you've got a choice, again, even if you're down south, you can watch Kilmarnock against whoever, or you can watch Rangers Celtic in a League Cup final. It's going to be Rangers Celtic, isn't it? And I think even your game, Andy, at Southampton, it's a 7:00 kickoff, and I'm assuming that's down to TV.
Yeah, that's down to TV. But if you look at it, Rangers Celtic, normally, like I said, like a half hour or so ago on the show, normally Rangers Celtic back in the day, everyone down there is like, I'm watching that. It's on the same time as Man United, Man City. Surely someone in Scotland must go, don't kick this game off at 3:30 because Man United, Man City kicks off at 4.
Yeah.
Surely someone in Scotland goes, if we want anyone to watch this outside of the Rangers and Celtic fans and the diehard Scottish football fans, surely someone from wherever it's being broadcast, whether it's on Sky or TNT, surely someone must go, hang on a minute, Man United, Man City, 4:00, we're kicking off at 3:30. No buggers watching.
We don't have that intelligence up here. We don't.
No comment.
I mean, seriously, Andy, I'm being serious about it, because we've talked about the finances that come into the game.
Yeah.
How do you promote your game when it clashes with the big England Premier League? How do you promote it? That's your biggest cup tie, possibly for the whole season. And yet, as you rightly say, it clashes. So, who in their wisdom decided, we'll just sit there, it'll be okay. You will never get funding if you can't promote the product. And when I was talking about promoting the product early, that's a product you should be promoting.
Do you guys think I heard this on TalkSport about a month ago now, and I think for the Premier League, I get into arguments with this about people all the time. I don't think it'll work. If you took Rangers and Celtic league game or cup game and played it at Wembley Stadium, played it at MetLife Stadium in New York, would that help Scottish football? Because I think if you done it with Man United, Liverpool, it would work, but there'd be absolute uproar. We don't need the money. And that's not being disrespectful. Okay. We don't need the money. But if you put Rangers and Celtic in New York, or if you put it at Wembley Stadium, I think.
Wait a minute, Andy, I'll stop you.
You ain't going to get a league game.
It's a non-starter. Let's take New York. It would make Donald Trump's bully boys look like altar boys when the whole firm came to New York.
Yeah.
They would wreck the place. The same if they go to London. they would wreck it. Rangers played Manchester United in there, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. They're still trying to recover from it.
We've got them again in a few weeks.
Honestly,
We've
got society up here, and you used the word earlier, religion. It is a religion with them. But unfortunately, people can't draw the boundaries. Religion's good in a lot of places, yeah. But people, you just see the venom. I watched it went to the crowd last night, and you could see the venom in people's faces. And I thought, this is not what football's meant to be about.
I was in a Glasgow Rangers bar, one of your ex-players. It was his bar in Glasgow when I was up there about 2-3 years ago. And I got chatting to these 17, 18-year-old lads. But everything they talked to me about with football was involving what their dad had taught them about Protestants and Catholics and things like that.
Yep.
And to me, I mean, I was not nervous going up there. I've travelled the world watching football, but a lot of my friends were like, "You're English and you're going up to watch a Scottish game. Be careful." And I was chatting to these guys who were in this Glasgow Rangers bar and they were singing the English national anthem, but everything coming out of their mouth was anti-Scottish or very religion. And I've never experienced that really as a football fan down south. We have the tribalism. We have Tottenham, Arsenal, we have Man United, Man City. I've never let religion, I'm probably the least religious person you'll ever meet. I've never let religion come into any of my sporting beliefs or any of my political views or anything. When I was in this bar, Morelos, I can't remember the guy's name, the bar I was in Rangers, former Rangers player. Everything that come out of these fans' mouths, and they were good lads. I'm not dissing these lads. They were nice guys. But everything that come out of their mouths were about religion or they were talking about RIA bombings and I'm like, we're talking about a game of football here, lads. But everything they were like, this is why I hate Celtic. This is why I hate Celtic. And I'm thinking, I don't like Arsenal because it's a football rivalry. I wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. I wouldn't want anyone to die. I wouldn't want any harm on an Arsenal fan. As much as the rivalry is huge, everything that I heard when I was up in Glasgow was very like, oh, hang on a minute, this is more than football. You know, and that's a culture I don't know if you're ever going to get away from. I hope you do, but why not?
There's no way on this planet, and the education that goes towards kids, it's handed down by generations. You can see them going to pit games, and you can see both ends, Celtic and Rangers. You've got these young guys going along, and it's pretty sad. But that's society. We talk about society all the time on in here, and you know we'll never be able to change that. Never be able to change that. We could talk to the cows coming.
Andy, you saw the thing I shared in the group chat there during the week about the highlights for the Virginia Tech. You know, before the game, you know, and you look at what they are there in the stand in the college game. You know, you've got fans of Virginia Tech and whoever they were playing. They're all together in the same crowd, and it's the same when we're watching, obviously, American football as well. You know, you've got Dallas fans and Washington fans sitting next to one another and whatever else. You ain't going to get that at football, and I think the problem is that, and the difference is between the two, is you get the college guys there who will defend their college because they're so proud of what their college is or what their NFL side is or basketball side. You know, they'll defend it to the cows come home. But you've got the opposite end of the stage there where in soccer, you know, you hate whoever it is just purely and simply because, and that's what you base everything on. You don't base it on the pride of your own team. You base it on the dislike of the other team. You know, and I think when you're looking at that, that's completely what's wrong in the sport of football, you know, or the sport of soccer.
As an Englishman, can we do it rugby?
It baffles me.
Rugby, we don't have that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a soccer thing, Dennis, or a football thing.
As an English guy coming up to when I come up to Glasgow, and by the way, I think I'm coming back in the end of January, so us guys will have to definitely meet up. As just an English guy listening to and I love you guys. We're doing this. I love just meeting random people, and I will talk football with anyone. And I love that's part of for me. That's why I love sport. I can go into a bar and I would strike up a conversation, and we could talk about sport for hours. And I'll buy him a beer, he'll buy me a drink back, and we'll sit there and we'll talk about sport. When I was in Glasgow, it was just like it was great because we were talking about football, but everything come back to. He's a Catholic. He's a proddy. My dad's taught me. And I'm thinking, unless you change that culture or that society, then you're banging trouble. Because if you take that all around the world or you take that anywhere else, then wow. And if you're right, I think that it's a football thing. I mean, you go to Turkey and you go to some of these other countries and everything comes. just let sport be sport. Rangers and Celtic hate each other, but at the end of the day, let's go to the pub and have a pint.
That's why you will never have an empty Ibrox or Parkhead. Simply because it's religious driven and 75% of it. And the bottom line is that 75%, if you put on a load of garbage, will still turn up because that's their fix on a Saturday afternoon. Now, the good thing is, right, it doesn't spill onto the streets the same way as it could when you look at how aggressive they are. But
them days seem to have gone a little bit, which is good.
You will never change that bigotry. You will never change
Scotland not long ago, there wasn't as nowhere near as the violent when I was a kid. England-Scotland games. I mean, my mum now my mum's got a scar going down from the bridge of her nose to the top of a big scar because she was English and went to a Scottish school. They found out she was English and they literally threw rocks at her. And that's still today now. Like my mum speaks to people back home in Scotland and stuff like that, and she says that still goes on today. And unfortunately, that's like you guys mentioned, that's more a society problem. There's people I know, Scottish people, that would not do what we're doing now. They would not sit down with an Englishman and talk football. And that's and I don't even think you could get a Rangers and Celtic fan on the same podcast because the hatred is that strong.
Yeah, it's venomous, and it's poisonous. Yeah. That's the problem, with a lot of it, and that is not necessarily driven by society. As I say, it's just a matter of you hate the other side, and what you want to believe in or whatever else is driven by hatred. It's not necessarily driven by being proud of Rangers. It's been driven by hating Celtic.
Yeah, it's a lack of education. That's all that is.
But Dennis, these same people are educated who follow rugby. They go to the same schools. It's not necessarily a lack of education.
They're fine. But you don't have this venom going to rugby matches.
No, I know England rugby fans that have come up to Scotland and had the best weekend of their life.
I've been there. I've been to
England families to rugby matches.
It is a football. To be honest, it is a football problem.
Yeah, I seen somebody at I'm trying to think where it was, and it was Ross County. That's where it was. I was trying to think because it was the camera went right on it. It was a couple of elderly people and they were sitting there and they were all quite well dressed, the lady and her husband and that. And you went and heard the language it was coming through.
Yeah.
And I thought, do they really want to come and watch this football match when you're hearing that?
Yeah, that's the thing, And I think that is football driven. Yes, society's got a lot to answer for, but again, I think a lot of that is football driven because, Andy, again, when it comes to Washington, you're no any less passionate about Washington than you are about Spurs. So it's a football thing. It definitely is, and not for 1 minute accusing you of the same kind of thing, but just in that kind of level.
You're right.
Get guys who follow two sports. You can get guys who watch football on a Saturday or go to football on a Saturday afternoon, and they're venomous, they're poisonous, they're spouting all sorts of hatred. And then the following day they can be sitting there watching the Masters at golf. Without the venom and hatred. It's a football thing all day long, and as Graham Duthie there says, he'd sit down and talk football with anybody, so
let's make it happen.
Nice positive note
in January. Let's do it.
Yeah, you coming up? Yeah.
Yes, mate. I'm coming up the end of January. So if you boys want to meet up in a bar somewhere, I'm coming up the end of January. One of my best mates, Paul. He is a humongous Glasgow Rangers fan. We come up a couple of years ago, and I ended up with food poisoning, so it kind of ruined my weekend.
And you said that, yeah.
Yeah, we're coming up at the end of January, beginning of February. I'm going to be in Glasgow, so it'd be great to meet up with you guys.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Cool, mate. Yeah, definitely. Super Bowl weekend up here.
What are we going to now, Cammy? Because we're well over our allocated time.
I think we've done it. I think we really have tried to fix the ills of football. The ills of society has been an absolutely completely different show, totally different from where we would have thought we would have normally gone. One quick question, Andy. Graham Duthie again. Here you go. This one's for you.
No.
I think
there's your answer, Graham.
Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City. There's the top four.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be far wrong for there. Will you finish atop Nottingham Forest? There's a question for you.
Oh yeah, we'll finish 6, I think.
Sixth.
I'll tell you what,
Villa
you're
fifth.
still going above
Yeah.
Brentford.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, look, you know, you got Forest, you got Brentford. I think we'll eventually be okay because it's what Tottenham do. I think we'll be in the Europa League and yada yada yada. But yeah, we'll be all right, mate. But yeah,
Yeah.
just be Tottenham. That's what we do.
Smashing. Andy, thank you very much. Before we finish, tell anybody here where they can find more boroughs.
Yeah, Mark, Jesus. At Washington UK fan on X on Twitter. Talk a lot of, obviously, Cammy, you know, talk a lot of NFL on there. Obviously do some stuff for Dunstable Town, my local team, my non-league team, at DTFC Pod on there. But yeah, at Washington UK fan is where you can find me, pretty much talking about sport most of the day. If you want to come on there, The Bunker, go on to YouTube, type in The Bunker Podcast. I'm on there. Hitting the Turnbuckle, do some stuff with them as well. And obviously, yeah, Talk of the Town, where we talk non-league football and talk all things Dunstable Town. But yeah, I've absolutely love this. It's been this to me is what football's all about, doing something like this. And yeah, I appreciate it, Graham. Thanks so much, mate. Yeah, this for me is what football's all about, doing things like this and sitting down and just talking football with two great guys like yourself. And you know, and this is what, you know, society can learn a lot from what podcasting and stuff brings, because you know, if I do come up the end of January, which I will, and us three are all together in a bar, then football, that's what football should be about.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%, mate. 100%. And on that note, I think we'll leave it there. So this has been the Friday Night Football Pitch. Thank you very, very much to my guest, Andy Burrows. Thanks as always to Dennis Newell. Thanks to you for listening. Go ahead, like, subscribe, find us on YouTube. Good night.